Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, we're talking about Jake Pilarski. We're going to talk about potential changes to the rule changes. Going to talk about Julio Urias returning to the Dodgers and his potential schedule, and a little bit about Daniel Hudson and his availability for opening day. That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now, and then you will never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snyder. My co-host is Vince Samperio. He will be with us for the second half. It'd be me first half, Vince second half. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And one of those boys in blue that I want to jump right into talking about is Jake Pilarski, a name that you maybe had never heard of before today. In fact, if you didn't watch Monday night's game, you may have still never heard this name until I just said it. But Jake Pilarski is a guy the Dodgers signed in January. And his story is pretty remarkable because you wonder, you watch this guy pitch on Monday, he's throwing 100, 101 miles an hour and struck out the side, just looked dominant. And you're like, where did this guy come from? And how have I never heard of him? And the Dodgers signed him to a minor league contract. He has been pitching in indie ball the last 2 years. He pitched at the Citadel in college and was okay, but things just never quite worked out for him. And so he's been pitching in indie ball. And he went to what's Tread Athletics, I think is what it's called, to work out. There's a lot of these different baseball facilities around these days. Obviously, Driveline is the most famous. There's what's the one? Brent Porciao is the guy who runs it, and I can't remember what the place is called right now. But it'll probably come to me at some point. It's in somewhere in the South, like Louisiana or something, maybe. And then there's this Tread Athletic, a lot of places where people can go to basically like work on their biomechanics and figure out their, mechanics and optimize their pitching delivery and become the best they can. And Top Velocity, Top Velocity, I think is what the Brent Porciao place is called. Anyway, so Jake Pilarski went to one of these places on his own dime, just spent basically, according to the scout, actually, let me go back a little bit. I don't want to take any credit for this conversation with the scout because this is our buddy Tim Rogers, who is a friend of mine, a huge Dodger fan. He's on Twitter. I think his handle's SD Dodger. I feel bad if I got that wrong. Let's see. It used to be SD. Oh, Tim changed it. Now it's just Tim Rogers 2080. I guess I haven't paid attention to Tim's handle because I follow him. So Tim Rogers 2080. He does prospect stuff at 2080 baseball. Dodgers 2080, I guess is what it's called. Anyway, Tim talked with Jake Pilarski, and then he talked to a guy named Jonah Rosenthal, who is the scout who signed Jake Pilarski. And the story behind it, the scout described this guy, and I'm going to try to remember to have Vince put a link to this video. I did just retweet it, so if I forget, just go to my Twitter feed, and you can see on Monday night I quote tweeted Tim's tweet about that with this video. It's a YouTube video, really good stuff. Tim talking to Jonah Rosenthal, the scout, and Rosenthal kind of says that Pilarski was one of those guys who kind of saw, well, if everything went right, and the way he says, if he put A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H all together, it could work out. But most of the time, those guys, they don't. They'll put a couple things together, but they just never put it all together. But Rosenthal describes Pilarski kind of as a scout's dream because he did. He went to Tread Athletics, and he revamped his mechanics, his arsenal, changed everything, and just did everything to maximize his potential. And next thing you know, he's throwing 100 miles an hour. And Rosenthal had a friend at Tread who sent him or texted him or called him or whatever and said, "Hey, Pilarski, he's pretty good now." And and Rosenthal was familiar with Pilarski from college, and so Pilarski said, "Well, yeah, send me some video." And he sent a video, and he's throwing 101. That's maybe pretty good was a little bit of an understatement. And so Rosenthal talked to Will Rhymes, the Dodgers director of player development, and basically told him this is a guy who, and he was very impressed with his work ethic. He was all doing it on his own time, like I said, spending all his money to become the best pitcher he can be while working full time, just really working really hard. And so the desire and the work ethic impressed Rosenthal. So he told Rhymes, we might want to do this. And he's doing a workout for a handful of teams next week. And Will Rhymes said, why wait for the workout? Let's just sign the dude. If you like his makeup and we like his stuff, let's sign him. And this is like the Dodgers approach is don't wait. If you've got this guy with the potential, what he's done on his own and with Tread Athletics, imagine what he can do in the Dodgers system with their player development system. So he said, let's not wait and let's not risk missing out on him. So he said, let's sign him. And so Rosenthal called him and he said that Pilarski didn't even call him back for 3 hours because Pilarski had turned his phone off because he was at work. Like that's how hardworking he is. But they offered him a contract and he said Pilarski was blown away by it. That shows his humility. Like, you throw 101, you didn't think you were going to get a contract. That all happened in January. He's kind of an internet find. He's one of those guys who you'll see sometimes on Twitter, looking for a team, here's my stats. And, oh yeah, I throw 101, by the way. And the Dodgers signed him. And, there's still a long road to go. And Rosenthal kind of makes that point too, that he hasn't even pitched in the affiliated minor leagues yet. He has to go. He'll probably go to, probably start in AA. He's 24 years old, I believe. And so, probably start in AA, maybe even AAA, but probably AA. And, go out there but I mean, with his stuff, he could throw a curveball for strikes. He has a changeup too. And so, I mean, he could be a legit relief pitcher pretty soon with that stuff. If he can throw strikes, if he can command that fastball, I mean, there's a lot of potential there. And so I really, really recommend you go watch Tim's video. It's great. I really will try to make sure that Vince puts a link to it in the description. But like I said, I tweeted it. Tim did a great job with the conversation with Pilarski himself and with the scout. It's just exciting. And Jake Pilarski might turn out to not ever make the big leagues. This might be the last time we think about Jake Pilarski. I don't know, but it sure was fun to watch him on Monday night in the spring training game. And, it's not just the results. Striking out the side is nice, but the stuff and it was interesting. I didn't have the volume up very high when I was watching the game. I was talking to family and stuff. And so I'm like, who is this guy pitching? And so I actually pulled out the game day app or whatever and looked, and it said it was Marshall Kasowski. I'm like, I know that's not Marshall Kasowski. That's not what Marshall Kasowski looks like. And Marshall Kasowski doesn't throw 101. And so I had to turn the volume up and wait for Neverett and Monday to say his name again. Oh, Pilarski. I remember when the Dodgers signed him because, I had seen him on Twitter. And so it's exciting and it's fun. And it's one of those little stories that could end up being a great story. One of the reasons we love baseball. And I was excited about Jake Pilarski. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about him. And, maybe you're as excited about him too. Maybe you're not, but, watch Tim's video, go watch the highlights. If you didn't get to watch him pitch on Monday night, some stuff to be excited about. I'm going to come back in a minute and I'm going to talk about some potential changes to the recent rule changes. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is what everybody looking to improve their career uses, and so might as well list your job there too. People are already there. So just go there, add your job listing and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I am back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. If you are watching on YouTube, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the YouTube comment section. If you are listening on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you through social media or email or whatever. Vince will give you all that contact info at the end as usual. We do enjoy hearing from you guys. Love hearing your thoughts. So Major League Baseball has been playing with new rules this spring, with the bigger bases and pickoff limits and stuff. The rule that has gotten the most attention has been the pitch clock. It's kind of the biggest, most drastic change. Second most is the shift restrictions. Not quite banning the shift. You can still shift, just can't overshift, whatever you want to call it. And so those are the two big ones. And like all rules, there's room for adjustment. And Evan Drellich of Drellich, I don't know. I'll say both, and one of them will be correct. I've just guaranteed my chances of being 50% correct. But he writes for The Athletic, and he said that members of MLB's competition committee on Monday discussed tweaks to baseball's new rules. People briefed on the meeting told The Athletic, opening the door to potential rule modifications for opening day. It wasn't immediately known what specific changes were discussed, but if any are made, they're not expected to be major. So according to Drellich, the Players Association brought the suggestions to the league, and it's ultimately up to the commissioner's office. Last year, when they did implement these rules, the players on the competition committee actually voted against both the pitch clock and banning the shift, and they implemented them anyway. And so players don't really have a lot of control here. But according to Drellich, some of the things that maybe have been discussed, because it basically things that people in the union have expressed concern about either publicly or privately. He lists 4 bullet points. One, that the 15-second pitch timer is too constricting with no one on base. 2, that hitters should get slightly more time and shouldn't need to be in the box and alert to the pitcher with 8 seconds left on the timer. 3, that players who are involved in a defensive play to end one half inning should get extra time if they're leading off the next half inning. And 4, that hitters should be allowed more than one timeout per plate appearance. And so I have thoughts on these things. I've been watching a lot of spring training and really enjoying the pitch clock. I noticed that none of these are about the shift. It's just about the pitch clock. It seems like everybody is pretty much happy, or at least not mad about the shift restrictions. It applies to everybody, and it's just it's a different way of playing baseball, but it's okay. I have strong opinions about a couple of these. The first one that Drellich mentions, that the 15-second pitch timer is too constricting with no one on base. My thought on that is, so what? That's the point. It's with the pitch clock is supposed to speed things up, and with nobody on base, like, what else do you have to think about? Just get the ball and throw it. So I think 15 seconds has been great. I think most of the time guys are delivering the pitch with 5 or 6 seconds left on the clock. And so I don't think it's a majority of pitchers who are worried about that. I'm actually surprised. If anything, I would have thought that it would be the with runners on base, that 20 seconds is a little too much or too short a time, but they seem okay with that. But the 15-second pitch timer with no one on base, I love it. Keep it. Don't mess with it. And then the last one that he mentions, hitters should be allowed more than one timeout per plate appearance. Nuh-uh. One timeout's great. And use it wisely, and some pitchers are weaponizing that. But if going along with his second bullet point, hitters should get slightly more time and shouldn't need to be in the box and alert to the pitcher with 8 seconds left on the timer, I totally agree with that one. I would like to see the rule be that the pitcher can't throw the pitch until there's 8 seconds left on the clock, or the batter is alert to the pitcher, or say 6 seconds left on the clock, or the batter is alert to the pitcher, whichever comes first. And so that way, if a guy gets in the box with 11 seconds left and he's looking at the pitcher, great, throw the pitch. But if the pitcher, If it's 6 seconds left and the batter still isn't alert to the pitcher, throw your pitch. That's his problem. That gave him plenty of time. We've seen strikes called where, like, I think JD Martinez had one call on him, and maybe even a strikeout where he was just putting his bat across the plate, but he was ready, but the umpire said he wasn't making eye contact with the pitcher or whatever. I think that's a little bit too heavy-handed, and so I would like to see that rule tweaked, where basically I don't want to see any automatic strikes. I like automatic balls if the pitcher takes too long, but you don't need automatic strikes. Just, okay, pitcher, at 6 seconds, you're allowed to pitch whether the batter's ready or not. So it's not an automatic strike, but the batter's motivated to be ready because the pitcher's going to throw the pitch. And so I'd rather see something like that. His third bullet point, and the reason I brought that one up is because that would reduce the need for hitters to need more than one timeout per plate appearance, because one timeout is plenty, and then you can wait. Okay, don't get back in the box for a little while, and just, whatever it is, you can kind of control. Just don't look up, just kick around, and then with 9 seconds left, then look up, and you don't have to worry about the pitcher holding the ball for 13 seconds and making you antsy. The last one, or the third one, but the last one I'm going to talk about, players who are involved in a defensive play to end one half inning should get extra time if they're leading off the next inning. Yeah, absolutely. That seems like one of those common sense rules that that should be an easy tweak, where it's like, oh yeah, there's something we didn't think about, and now we've thought about it. And so, yeah, let's adjust that. The only other thing I can think of that Drellich doesn't mention is the 30 seconds between plays. I wonder, with guys, if you walk, you take a walk, you take a couple seconds to lean down and take off your shin guard and, your elbow guard, give it to the bat boy, get down there to the base. There's 12 seconds left on 15 seconds left on the clock. Then you got to get your oven mitt on. I'd like a little more flexibility maybe there. I'm not sure what the answer is, but maybe something not quite so strict. And even if it's just going to 35 seconds between plays, or, having different time limits. Okay, if it's a walk, it's one thing, or change when they start the 30-second clock. Okay, it starts as soon as the batter starts heading towards first base. So if he does stop and take off a shin guard and stuff, the clock doesn't start yet. I wouldn't mind seeing a tweak to that. Overall, though, I've been really happy with the new rules. I think it's been great for baseball. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm happy with them. That's going to do it for me. Vince is going to come on. He's going to talk about Julio finishing up with Mexico losing in the World Baseball Classic. That was just an hour and a half, 2 hours ago as I'm recording this, so it's probably still pretty raw for Vince. But yeah, Julio's done with Team Mexico, so he will be pitching for the Dodgers this week. Vince is going to talk about that and how that lines up, and talk about some comments from Daniel Hudson, and maybe a little more thoughts from in person at the World Baseball Classic. So that's going to do it for me. Thanks for listening, and Vince will be along.
The Built March Madness bracket is here, and we know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now's your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorites. I'll be voting for the Churro Puff, and if you want the Dodgers to win, then you'll be voting for that bar too. Support your team, support your bar, support your puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. You got to try Built. Built, the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they're great. They taste great. They do what you need. They're good for you. Go get you some Built bars. Go enter this contest. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com and vote for your favorites. Built bars every month is a great prize. What makes Built bars and puffs so good? They're covered in chocolate. They're low in sugar, high in protein, high in fiber. Real chocolate. Go get it right now. And run to BuiltMarchMadness.com and vote for your favorite bar or puff, and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in and support your pick. Yo, Dodger fans, Vince here to close out the episode. And as Jeff said, you're going to talk a little bit about Julio and his return to the Dodgers, a little bit about Daniel Hudson, and then just a little touch on the World Baseball Classic. Well, I guess we can start with the World Baseball Classic because that'll lead into the Julio plans. Team USA already advanced to the finals. Team Mexico and Team Japan played last night in a really, really great game if you didn't watch. Mexico went up 3-0 earlier in the game. Japan tied it on a 3-run home run a little bit later. In the 7th, Mexico took the lead back thanks to Alex Verdugo in the top of the 8th. And then the bottom of the ninth, Mexico had to face Team Japan 3, 4, 5 hitters, and that's all it took for Japan. Otani doubled, Yoshida walked, and Murakami hit a walk-off 2-run double off the wall. So Team Mexico's run is over. Team Japan will now face USA in the final. Shohei Otani versus Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, and Will Smith on the USA side. No Dodgers on Team Japan side. So yeah, it was as a fan of baseball and the World Baseball Classic, it was really fun. The environment was cool. It was a great game. As a fan of Mexico, obviously, not the ideal ending or situation, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Sorry if you hear a siren in the background. There's not a really good place to record here when you're working out of a hotel. But so that means Julio will return to the Dodgers, regardless of what it was. Julio was already scheduled to pitch on Friday, whether Mexico made it to Tuesday's final or not. But that does line him up to pitch on opening day potentially, because if he pitches Friday for the Dodgers, you count 5 days off, and then that next day is Thursday, which is opening day. It was going to come down to Julio or Kershaw for opening day anyways. So this doesn't necessarily mean that Julio is going to throw opening day, but you would imagine that it kind of lines them up a little bit more like that, especially since Kershaw is not exactly lined up to pitch for opening day, and Julio, in the sense that he's the Dodgers' ace this season, deservedly so, can get the opening day call. But that remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. I personally don't. I know Jeff said that he would, want Kershaw to do it a couple weeks back, and I don't know. I guess it kind of depends. If you're the Dodgers and you think there's a chance that Julio might come back, that's more than just money, then you got to kind of give him the opening day start. You got to basically kiss his feet the entire season in a way, in order to get in his good graces. And giving him opening day start would be part of that. If the Dodgers don't really think he's going to come back, or if they think it's strictly money based, or if they just don't care, I guess, then it wouldn't really matter who starts opening day in that sense. But I gotta imagine Julio's going to get the opening day start. He got he's at this point, and last year he got the start in Game 1 of the playoffs. He is the Dodgers, quote unquote ace. He was, top Cy Young candidate last year, the last 2 years. So it might be time to give him that. So we'll see what happens there. Looking forward to a start on Friday. His last start as we talked about, his last start in the World Baseball Classic wasn't the strongest start. He gave up 4 runs right away. Obviously, a lot of teams aren't going to have the top of the order that Puerto Rico had. But even then, Julio's the guy that should be able to get outs anywhere. Velocity was down from his first start. So, we'll continue to watch velocity, but it's mainly with Julio at this point, velocity is just icing on the cake. It's just a matter of him commanding his other pitches and being able to, locate and command all those pitches. So we'll see what happens with Julio. But yeah, we'll move on to someone that is not going to be with the Dodgers on opening day more than likely, and that's Daniel Hudson. Daniel Hudson, he had a torn ACL last year, was recovering from that. As he was recovering from that, had some issues with ankle tendonitis. So he's been, hasn't had a normal spring so far. Daniel Hudson talked about it. He said, quote, "We're trying to evaluate it right now and see where we're at. We haven't really made any decisions on what the next step is, just trying to map some stuff out and see what's going on. We've checked some boxes off, so what's next? The next box to check off is obviously probably getting in a game. So what's the path to being there? It's just going to take a little bit of time." So Hudson has faced hitters in practice in live BP situations. We remember he had to face James Outman the other day and called James Outman Babe Ruth, kind of jokingly. And for Hudson, it's a matter of he can if you need him to pitch in a game right now, he can pitch in a game. It's a matter of how he feels the next day or the next couple of days after. And as a reliever, you can't be stuck being able to only pitch like once every 3 days because, the Dodgers are going to count on relievers and you need to be able to at least pitch once every other day. Ideally you can pitch back-to-back days, but we're not quite there yet with Hudson. Roberts also spoke about it. He said, quote, I think there's going to be some point where Huddy is going to get over the hump when he's pitching against live hitters and he's not going to feel anything. I think that right now where we're at, every event we've had, he just hasn't felt great coming out of it. I'm feeling for him to know he's frustrated, but he'll pitch meaningful innings for us at some point. And yeah, we talked about this a little bit with the bullpen yesterday. Is early on, we thought there wasn't really going to be any spots. If anything, someone that was maybe worthy of a spot was going to be left off the roster. But now with Daniel Hudson and Jimmy Nelson struggling, that opens up a couple spots because Ferguson has emerged in one of those spots. We've talked about maybe, Phil Bickford or someone like that taking over that other spot. And for the Dodgers, Daniel Hudson in April isn't as important as Daniel Hudson in September, October. So as long as it takes him to recover, they're going to be fine with that. And with the Dodgers, it's one of those things where, they don't have to rush him. They still have a pretty good bullpen. They're still going to be, ready to go in those later innings with Evan Phillips and Bruce Graterol and Yancy Almonte, Alex Vesia, and Caleb Ferguson in that mix. So they're still set, and the bullpen, Daniel Hudson, take his time, get back when he needs to, and they'll go on from there. So there's no reason to be concerned. Everyone recovers differently from different surgeries and things of that nature, especially Daniel Hudson, a little bit older. That might affect him a little bit. We saw Ronald Acuna Jr. come back from a torn ACL last year, and even he would have days where he would feel his knee pain or couldn't, play every single day. So, and Acuna's young, so obviously he plays a lot more demanding position out there in the outfield and running the bases and everything else. But it's just a matter of making sure he's getting right. And Daniel Hudson with Alex Reyes, the Dodgers are going to take their time. They're not going to worry about it. They're not as important in the first half of the season as they are in the second half of the season and into October, which is for sure when those guys can be ready to go. So I'm not concerned. We shouldn't be concerned. We'll see Daniel Hudson at some point this season, ideally. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Make sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball for your second listen. Matt and Dom are bringing you the best fantasy draft strategies every day until the season. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. They're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also part of that same Locked On Podcast Network, and you can also find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube if you search for Locked On Dodgers, which is how you can find us if you search that on social media, Twitter and Instagram. Jeff is on Twitter at SnideDog. I'm at Vince Samperio. The DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Check my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen.